Dokkan 2025. Honestly, something I don't hear a lot of people talk about too much, but whenever I look into it, I will see people say that Dokkan really hasn't been up to snuff so far this year. So today, I want to go ahead and understand why is Dokkan struggling so far in 2025. Today, I'll go ahead and share with you guys, in my opinion, what are some issues plaguing Dokkan. I'll also go ahead and look at what the Dokkan community has to say about this because they have a lot of opinions when it comes to Dokkan's performance this year. And then later in the vid, I'll also go ahead and share with you guys, in my opinion, what are some possible updates, changes, improvements, and solutions that could help Dokkan end the year off on a higher note than where it's been so far this year. Hopefully you guys will enjoy the vid. If you do, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, show your support. We are on the road to 1K subs, of course. Also, comment down below your thoughts. Let us all know, what do you personally think are some issues that are affecting Dokkan so far this year? And if you're feeling up to it, let us also know what are some improvements that you think Dokkan should make to make the year off a lot better than where it's been so far. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing I want to do, before I forget it, before I neglect it or anything, I want to bring you guys into the fold. I want to go ahead and bring my community into the fold. So yesterday, less than a day ago, I actually made two posts, one on Twitter and one on YouTube, asking you guys what sorts of issues do you think exist for Dokkan so far in 2025 and what improvements do you think need to be made. So because this post was made like less than a day ago, to be fair, there wasn't much traction on it. And to be fair, I'm not consistent with community posts anyway, so that's probably why it didn't get a lot of, like, you know, glow up. But there were some responses, so we can at least look at this as a bit of a baseline going into the rest of the vid. So for the YouTube side of things, you know, shout out to Dots, of course. Dots was saying, honestly, there should just be a bit more in terms of Dragonstones given to free-to-play players. I think Dokkan just isn't working with consistent event type games. Peton Battle is just sad. Ultimate Clash is good. They should add like 4 to 7 more events to play throughout the year. For how much they earn, they can make new stuff for players to enjoy. Also, they just never make manga characters. In manga, many times the Z Fighters will use different types of attacks compared to the anime. So let me go ahead and kind of break this down, and then we'll go into the Twitter side of things with my post, and then I'll go ahead and share with my thoughts. But as far as what Dots is saying, I actually do agree with some of the stuff that Dots is saying. The bit more stones and everything, I will say, as a free-to-play player, I wouldn't be mad at some more stones. I'm sure no one will be mad for more free-to-play stones being given to the game. But at the same time, I will say, so from my experience, coming off of the Sandy celebration, right, which was like last mid-March, like near the end of March, I was still summoning for Kid Goku when I got like the final copy and everything. I actually still have one more short to post about that now that I think about it, but that's beside the point. But with Kid Goku, I stopped summoning for him basically like the end of March. It's been about half a month since then, and now I have accrued 200 Dragon Stones, give or take, and that's just for me skipping the Cell banner and the Pycon banner up to this point. So I think we're in a good place when it comes to free-to-play Dragonstones. However, again, I'm not going to be mad at more Dragonstones. I'm sure no one's going to be mad at it, so I don't think it's going to happen as a like improvement, but I wouldn't be mad at it. Let me just say it for what it is. Dokkan not being consistent with event game types and everything, I do think this is a serious issue, not in the way that Dots mentions it, because they're saying that, you know, we should get 4 or 7 new events or more events to play throughout the year. I think there's a different way to approach it, which maybe Dots is kind of alluding to, but I have a different kind of a way of describing it, I guess, so I'll come to that in just a sec. But I think Dokkan is kind of lacking in terms of different styles of content or multiple forms of content, I guess, in that sense. For how much they earn, I mean, Dokkan, one of the top grossing, I believe it's the top grossing gacha type game in the mobile game like base, maybe one of the top grossing games ever, but one definitely, I believe, like top grossing far as like mobile gacha games specifically, but they make money. So Dokkan, able to make so much money as they do, they should definitely be able to kind of spend a bit more and splurge a bit more for us and for them to make a better kind of game, I guess, in quality. But you know, I'm not a financial whiz when it comes to Dokkan and how much paper they make, so I'm not going to go ahead and presume too much, but we know they make money. We know they outpace a lot of the other kind of gacha games, so based off that, you might think, hey, you know, Dokkan could maybe splurge a bit more, who knows. But yeah, so they definitely could make some more stuff for sure. Also, as far as the manga conversation, so I will say, obviously, when it comes to like the Dragon Ball Super manga, there are certain chapters that just haven't been adapted to the anime, so because of that, those arcs, they're not going to show up on the game. I'm pretty sure they're not going to show up on the game until they get adapted into the anime first. But when it comes to the manga, there are some arcs like the Goku Black arc and the Tournament of Power arc and such, where if you look at the manga, those arcs are different from how they're done in the anime. So yeah, you could see maybe some variations. We do see some animations for certain characters be kind of like throwbacks, or like, you know, just like, hey, remember this manga panel, this manga chapter, this is like a callback to that. So if they're going to do that, I think it's just one more step to make it into an actual manga character adaptation. I think realistically, anyone who's playing Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, like, people will joke and say, hey, this is just basically Dragon Ball versions of Candy Crush, right? So anyone who's playing this game and sticking with it, basically, we're kind of ingrained into, like, Dragon Ball fandom, right? Like, I feel like if Dokkan decides to introduce manga, like, type of characters and manga-oriented characters, it's not going to be a problem. If anything, you may arguably get a bigger kind of positive feedback out of it, because then all of a sudden you get the really big manga fans to enjoy it as well. So who knows? But I think the manga idea is not a bad idea at all. I think it's something that Dokkan definitely can do, and maybe they should. But when it comes to certain arcs down the line, like the Moro arc and the Granola arc, obviously those are not going to happen anytime soon. I don't think they're going to happen until the anime comes back. The other arcs, it remains to be seen if they'll actually touch on, like, the Goku Black manga side of things and stuff, but I think they can do it. I think they should do it. It's just a matter of if they will do it. So that's just my kind of thoughts on what Dots had to say right there, but a lot of different ideas, and I do appreciate that, of course. On the Twitter side of things, so shout out to Chris, the only person who actually responded to this, but I will say, Chris also, he seems to be on timing. He's always on one of these types of vids, so shout out to Chris, he's always on timing with us. But you know, I asked the same question here, and Chris was saying, personally for him, it's been fine. The word limit's gonna mess him up, but he'll yap accordingly. Anyways, the one true complaint for Chris specifically is just how dead Dokkan can feel at times, especially when there's plenty of old events to rejuvenate with new missions and stages. Random time-sensitive missions could be spread around, which will make it things nicer, and then the limit got to him. So yeah, if Twitter can update, give us some more word limits, that'll be great. Not hating too much, but I like to yap too, I'm just saying. But as far as what Chris was saying, so no issues with the banners, no real issues with the character quality. I'm sure Chris still has some, like, grievances about certain characters not being up to snuff, but that's not, like, the end-all be-all for Chris. It's more so the fact that there is not, like, there could be more content that we're not getting. So let me go ahead now with what Chris said, with what Dot said and everything. Let me go ahead and talk about what I think are some issues when it comes to Dokkan. So kind of hearkening to what both of them mentioned, right? Dots was saying, like, we need 4 to 7 more events. Chris saying right here, the old events need to be rejuvenated. I will say one of the biggest events, or one of the biggest issues to me, I should say, with Dokkan, is the fact that when you look at Dokkan, right, if you think about some of the content that we have in the game right now that's, like, meta, you have Battle Hard Formidable Foes, so that's like your very short form content. Then you have your Festival of Battles, which is your very, very, very long-form content, which, to be fair, not a lot of people even play because it takes so long. Then you have things like your Red Zone stages, your Blue Zone stages. I like to describe those as like a mid-length kind of fight where it's not, you know, like 4 to 5 turns, but it's maybe like 7 to 9 turns, give or take. But you have those types of content. You have Dokkan Chronicles to a degree. You have like the 10th anniversary battle, but some of this content you're not going to be revisiting once you beat it. And the fact of the matter is, this is all the content you really have. Beyond that, if you look back, think about some of the stuff we've gotten in the past. We've gotten challenge events for, like, Worldwide Celebration back in, like, the 2023, so this was the challenge event for the Future Saga. We have Intensifying Fights, which, to be fair, Intensifying Fights should be getting a new stage, actually, so, you know, they do kind of touch up on this event now and then, but not the most. It's just there now and then, so they do get that. But also, look back on some of these old stages, right? You know, Collection of Epic Battles. We haven't seen that in a long time, which I don't think they're going to be doing that anymore anytime soon, but we could see that, of course. You know, Boss Rush, Super Battle Road, Extreme Super Battle Road, The Fighting Legends, Infinite Dragon Ball History. Some of these events have been old for years, but they've always been updated. They've always seen love. They've always been a great thing for players in general, especially for new players trying to rack up Dragon Stones and save for big things like the anniversaries. These events, these old events, were the meta. These are the meta for a lot of players trying to figure out, hey, how do I get Dragon Stones to save for 11th anniversary or Worldwide Celebration or something like that. So the fact of the matter is, Dokkan really hasn't touched on these events. I'm not sure if they're just dropping these events or what's the issue here, but Super Battle Road and Extreme Super Battle Road, those were they were the OGs of Battle Hard Formidable Foes, and you could argue they may be a bit better in some aspects too, in certain ways, but that's neither here nor there. That's kind of like preferential, but both of them, you know, they exist. The nice thing about them is they kind of force you to bring certain types of categories and teams together to make things work. You know, the Fighting Legend challenges, to be fair, nowadays they are really easy to beat, but they were fun, and they still are fun when they get updates because they add challenges, they add certain types of category missions and stuff, and that makes these events more difficult, but also more fun to use different types of teams that maybe you do have in your back pocket that you just haven't used in a long time. Boss Rush, just basically your beat 'em up. It's not like Festival of Battles, but it is kind of lengthy because of all the different fights, but you're still getting to enjoy the Dokkan events. You're still getting to enjoy those challenges, and you get a lot of Dragon Stones out of it. So, you know, if you ask me, that Infinite Dragon Ball History, they need to come back to these events. I don't know what is the decision for them. I don't know what they're deciding. I don't know if they're planning to come back to it for Golden Week because they really need to, but they need to come back to these events at some point in time because there have been so many Dokkan events since the last Boss Rush stage came out. That needs to be updated. Extreme Super Battle Road is missing some stages that Super Battle Road has, so they need to be updating this at the bare minimum. There needs to be some things improved there. So that's one issue right there. The other thing, so let me talk about, at least in my opinion, what seems to be a main issue for a lot of people in Dokkan. We'll look at the Twitter community in just a sec, right? But you know, ever since the beginning of 2025, right? The beginning of 2025 in January, we were kind of in a bit of an interim period, kind of waiting for, you know, the 10th anniversary to begin. Once it began, the 10th anniversary, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people will agree, it was one of, if not the best anniversaries in Dokkan's history. The development team even said, this is going to knock everyone's socks off. They were really hyping this anniversary up, and I will say, I think, in the grand scheme of things, was the anniversary perfect? Fuck no. It was not perfect at all. But in terms of the bar that they set for themselves, the bar they set for us in terms of what to expect from the anniversary, I think at bare minimum, they achieved that bar, if not exceeded it. But that's preferential. I think at the bare minimum, they definitely met the bar that they set for themselves and for us in terms of what to expect. But yeah, the anniversary is not perfect. You know, if you look at what the anniversary offered, there were 6 premier summonable LRs, 4 Carnival LRs, 2 Dokkan Fest LRs. You had a really nice variety of LRs and moments to pick and choose from with Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Z, GT, and everything. But obviously, original Dragon Ball fans were kind of getting hoed because they didn't get a premier summonable LR, so they were upset about that, of course. You look at some of the Easy A's, we got a bunch of Easy A's and Super Easy A's, but some of them were kind of lackluster in design, and that is kind of tough in the grand scheme of things. I mean, if you go ahead, let me go ahead and just kind of reboot this, because this is searching Gohan, so that's not really going to help us. But when you look at the cards in general, right, so obviously ignoring PyCon, you see the free-to-play Demon King Piccolo right there, the LR for the 10th anniversary. You got the 6 premier summonable LRs, and then that's pretty much it as far as new characters are concerned, as far as LRs are concerned. Then you have to go back, and then you'll see other Easy A's take place. Easy A's, for example, like for Namagoku and Full Power Frieza, where a lot of people are not even happy about Namagoku's Easy A when it first came out. You got the 7th year Easy A's, of course, that happened. You have the Easy A's for Kaioken Goku and Great Ape Vegeta, so you had all these different things happen for the 10th anniversary. Part one was great. Part 2 was great. You know, the event content was great. Everything was going good. Then you go into part 3, or part like EX, or not part EX, but part 3 with the 7th year Easy A's, with Festival of Battles coming into play. That was where things started to take a slight downturn, not in terms of the Easy A quality, but because people were getting kind of annoyed about Festival of Battles in terms of how it was designed and how it worked. And then you keep on going, and then once we left like the 10th anniversary going into part EX, that's where things started to take a bit of a downturn, because then that's when we got Super Saiyan 3 Daima Vegeta. And as many of you guys may remember, when Daima Vegeta came out, when he was first announced and everything, and this was going to be part EX, and Daima showed a crack on the screen for the whole roadmap, everyone was shitting themselves, going crazy. Everyone was literally going ballistic, and for good reason. I mean, everyone was waiting for more Daima characters. The only 2 Daima characters we had up to that point were Glorio and Daima Super Saiyan Goku, as far as like summonable characters. So getting Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, getting Daima Vegeta with great animations, all sorts of stuff, a lot of people were excited, understandably so. But the fact of the matter is, Vegeta also was put in the time slot where you would get a random Dokkan Fest, and yet he was connected as the extreme part of the EX part for the 10th anniversary, which meant he had even more in his corner. And yet when you look at all those things, you look at what Vegeta can do as a character in terms of his performance, he was lackluster. In terms of hype, Vegeta got it. Vegeta may be one of the Vegeta is the most hyped character to come out since the 10th anniversary technically ended, even though he's like Party X, but still, he's like the most hyped character since then. And afterwards you had Kid Goku, we'll talk about him in just a sec, you have Cell and everything, but Vegeta was very hyped, and yet his kit is not performing to the level of hype that he has garnered for a lot of people. And that, I think, in and of itself is one of the biggest issues with Dokkan, is that in general, Dokkan seems to be having an issue of balancing hype and kit performance. So either they'll create a character who is very hype but performs very badly, or they'll create a character who is not hype at all, but all of a sudden their kit is one of, if not the best in the game. So I think that's been an issue for Dokkan ever since the 10th anniversary really ended. Maybe you could argue some things like that during the anniversary, but certainly since the anniversary ended with Daima Vegeta onwards, that was like an issue that I think was really kind of bothering the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I mean, definitely a problem there. We keep on going, I guess. You know, Vegeta was definitely an issue. Don't get me wrong. Saiyan Day Kid Goku, you know, Kid Goku, obviously one of, if not the best TORs in the game, as far as like premier TORs with no Easy A's and stuff, right? And probably in general too. But Saiyan Day Kid Goku also is not hype at all. This is one of the least hype forms of Goku, because this is not Goku versus Demon King Piccolo. This is not, Goku from those moments. This is Goku from the very beginning of Dragon Ball. And a lot of people have said this is a perfect kind of choice because obviously a year ago Toriyama passed away, so rest in peace to the GOAT. And Kid Goku being the star of the journey, that kind of is, symbolic of our memory of him and everything. But at the same time, when we talk about the practicality of Kid Goku as a choice for the Saiyan Day celebration, obviously the sentimentality factor is there. I've said it in previous vids, but Kid Goku is still not hype. For a lot of people, he's not even really representative of being a Saiyan for a lot of people, because if anything, you could argue this Goku is the most Earthling that Goku has ever been, because he doesn't know he's a Saiyan, he never goes Great Ape in his kit right here, he doesn't have any of those things, right? So he's his most Earthling self, and yet he's the Saiyan Day Kid character and everything. He still has great kit, but this is what I was saying. Not very hype, but a very powerful kit. We keep on going, I'll go ahead and kind of speed run through the last kind of releases, but obviously we go to the beginning of April. That had the April Fool's Dokkan Fest with Cell. I've already made my rant vids and everything on Cell, but Cell is a pretty hype character. This is not first form or second form Cell. This is perfect form Cell, and yet Cell, despite being hype, despite being very cool, he is not performing to the level that people expected from him. And I will say, compared to Vegeta, there is something more so when it comes to Cell for me, where with Diamond Vegeta, I can understand that maybe they try to cash in on the hype while it's hot, strike while the iron's hot at everything, and they maybe kind of went too close to the sun, got the hype, but they didn't plan things out. With Cell is not a suddenly new character that you're trying to do like a bit of a cash grab and, cash in on the hype, right? Cell's been a thing for years. So if you know Cell's going to be here, if you know that Cell is like, a cool character for years, you have the time and the ability to properly kind of construct a kit and make sure that he is living up to his hype. Or if you want to give the kit the way it is, make him second form Cell that transforms into perfect form Cell. Why not do that? Then at least people say, hey, his kit is kind of mediocre, but what do you expect? It's second form Cell. He'll get a bit better when he goes into perfect form or something, But really, it's just kind of interesting issues like that, I guess. But you have that. Pikkon, you know it's bad when the new LR Pikkon is one of the most hype characters, the one character that a lot of people are positively looking at when it comes to the Dokkan community. You know it's bad when Pikkon is that character because you had Cell, you had Diamond Vegeta, and yet Pikkon, even Kid Goku, Pikkon is the most well-received in my opinion ever since the 10th anniversary ended before Diamond Vegeta got released. So all those things kind of just point themselves to being really crazy. I mean, when we look at Dokkan 2025, what people have to say, people are saying right now, where's Project Multi? Dokkan Legends are boring right now. Mid-2025 has been kind of rough. All sorts of people just saying, I actually talked about my stuff for like 2025 Dokkan stuff, but, Vector right here saying, Golden Week has to be Saiyan Saga with Goku and Vegeta to save 2025. You have all sorts of opinions like that. Some people are still happy with 2025 because of the high HP bosses and stuff and like all those things, but you got Vector here again, saying Pikkon may be his favorite release of 2025. That says a lot in terms of how some of the other releases have been overall. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough. It really is tough. I'm trying to see a few more, like, kind of options right here. This was, like, one of those things where it's, like, kind of like a negative response, but, like, nothing screams 10 years celebrating of Dokkan and all that, like, LR Pikkon, which, I get it. LR Pikkon's not the most hype character, but still, it's not too bad. But a lot of people are like, saying like this is like Dokkan 2023 all over again, where you have some hype characters, but most of it has been pretty bad. And honestly, I can understand the sentiment. I don't think it's going to be the same kind of situation here at the end of the day, but I do kind of understand that people are saying there is a level of comedy with how 2025 has been for Dokkan. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. It really is tough seeing what the community has to say about this. I'm seeing a lot of Vector actually now that I think about it. But 2025 Dokkan being a desert. Rhodey, of course, 2025 having you miss 2023 Dokkan. That's kind of crazy. But I mean, it says a lot that people are kind of looking in that kind of position and kind of comparing it. So, the community is not really looking favorably towards Dokkan so far. Obviously, I'm not saying Dokkan is perfect. A lot of people, or some people in the community, in my community, are saying it's not perfect. But Dokkan hasn't been the worst either, in my opinion. I think there's a way to fix it, and it starts with a Golden Week celebration. We don't know what the theme is. We don't know what the character is going to be. People are predicting Saiyan Saga, maybe Namek Saga, maybe Daima. Whatever it is, the fact of the matter is the Golden Week needs to knock it out of the park. Golden Week is probably at worst the fourth biggest celebration, in my opinion, for Dokkan within a year, maybe third, and yet, it is still a big celebration, so it has to perform, because if we go from the 10th anniversary, which ended technically, realistically speaking, in like the end of February, if we go from that to like mid-May, like when the Golden Week celebration ends and it's just bad, we're gonna have a serious problem. We need Golden Week to all of a sudden bring things back up. That's really what needs to happen. So It starts there. If I had some other ideas, again, revisit some of these older types of events. Super Battle Road, ESBR, they're not bad events. They're fun. People enjoy them. Infinite Dragon Ball History with the challenges, they're fun. Boss Rush, it's fun. Like Chris was saying, revisit these events, maybe give us some more time-sensitive ones, give us more category-specific ones where, hey, we need to take a category that is basically ass right now and make it work. That will be a fun challenge, because I will say right now, I have a bunch of characters from all sorts of categories. I barely use half of them, because I just don't need to. There are other characters with better combinations I can use, more fun combinations because of the kits and the characters that I like and everything. So realistically, give us more challenges, revisit some of these older ones, and I think that's going to be a massive update. More Dragon Stones, I don't think that's going to be as big solution, but it'll be nice, I'm not gonna lie. And then the other thing is, I think in terms of the card design, going forward, I don't know how Dokkan's development team works. I don't know if they have the time to like update kits like a few weeks before their release. But after seeing this, if this message somehow reaches Dokkan, I will say right now, find a way to balance the hype and the kit design. Don't do this overcompensating back and forth kind of issue. I think that's been the biggest problem, is apart from PyCon, and even PyCon to a degree, but mostly besides PyCon, you're having characters who are really hype who don't perform nearly as much, or you have characters who are not hype at all, but they're performing through the freaking moon. And then PyCon, he's kind of hype, but not the most hype, and he's kind of good, like pretty damn good, but not the greatest, but he's pretty good, right? But he's still kind of there, just kind of a bit more balanced. Go into PyCon's direction a bit more, figure out that balance, because if you can figure out the balance, I promise Dokkan 2025 will be a lot better. Imagine if Cell was performing with his kit as well as his like character arc and everything, his moment was designed. Daima Vegeta, if Daima Vegeta's kit was as good as the hype for him, I mean, to be fair, Daima Vegeta may be broken, but still, he would be a great kind of like, pyre, or like, just a great flame to boost Dokkan's value or something. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, he would be a great symbol for Dokkan as a positive light. So that's just my kind of thoughts on the situation. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below again. What do you think are some issues about Dokkan as far as so far this year and their performance? Also, what do you guys think are some solutions that Dokkan should do if they're trying to improve their performance by the end of this year? If you guys enjoyed the vid, be sure to drop a like again, support the channel, subscribe to the channel because we are on the road to 1K subs. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, stay blessed, and I will see you all in the next one.